cold wind moved quietly through the narrow streets of the mountain town. Small houses stood close together under the dark evening sky. Most windows were already closed, and people inside their homes prepared for another ordinary night. But outside one small house, a young man sat alone on an old wooden chair. His name was Leo. He was 20 years old, and he was tired of being poor. Leo looked up at the stars shining above the mountains. His clothes were old, his shoes were worn out, and his hands were rough from helping his father repair broken machines. Inside the house, his mother Claire was preparing a simple dinner while his little sister Sophie finished her homework near the weak yellow light. Leo loved his family more than anything, but every day he watched them struggle. His father Mark worked long hours as a mechanic, fixing cars covered in grease and dirt. Some customers paid late, some never paid at all. Claire cleaned rich people's homes from morning until evening. Still, money was never enough. Sometimes Leo heard his parents whispering late at night, "How will we pay the bills? What about Sophie's school? We can't continue like this." Those words stayed inside Leo's heart like heavy stones. That night, while staring at the stars, Leo whispered quietly, "One day, I'll change our lives." The next morning, Leo woke up before sunrise. The freezing air touched his face as he walked through town. He noticed people carrying empty bags toward another village several miles away. Curious, Leo asked an elderly man, "Where are you going so early?" "To buy bread," the man replied. "There's no bakery here." Leo stopped walking. An idea entered his mind instantly. Bread. Everyone needed bread, but nobody sold fresh bread in town. For the first time in months, Leo felt excitement. That evening, he spoke to his father. "Dad, what if I sell bread here in town?" Mark looked at him carefully. "You'll need money first." "I know. And success isn't easy, Leo." "I know." Mark placed a rough hand on his shoulder and said slowly, "Dreams are not free, son. If you want something, you must suffer for it." Those words changed Leo forever. The next morning, he walked miles to a bakery in the next town. The owner was an old man named Mr. Anderson. He was known for being strict and unfriendly. When Leo entered the bakery, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Mr. Anderson looked at him suspiciously. "What do you want?" Leo took a deep breath. "Sir, I want to sell your bread in my town." "And?" "I don't have money yet." Mr. Anderson frowned immediately. "Then this conversation is over." But Leo didn't leave. "Please," he said firmly, "give me 1 week. I'll sell the bread, return your money, and keep only a small profit." The old man stared at him silently. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm willing to work harder than anyone else." For several seconds, the bakery became completely silent. Finally, Mr. Anderson sighed. "1 week on it," he said. "If you fail, don't come back." Leo smiled for the first time in days. "Thank you, sir. I won't disappoint you." The next morning, before sunrise, Leo carried heavy baskets of bread on his back and walked all the way home. His shoulders burned with pain, but he kept walking. When he reached town, he placed the bread near the park and shouted with all his energy, "Fresh bread! Warm bread!" People ignored him at first. Some doubted him, some laughed, but Leo refused to stop smiling. He offered free samples to children and greeted every customer warmly. Slowly, people began buying. 1 loaf became 2, 2 became 10. By evening, every piece of bread was sold. Leo counted the money carefully. He had enough to pay Mr. Anderson back, and for the first time in his life, he earned his own profit. That night, his family celebrated with a small dinner. Sophie hugged him tightly. "You're amazing, Leo." Claire smiled proudly while Mark quietly nodded. But Leo knew this was only the beginning. For months, he repeated the same routine every single day. Wake up at 4 a.m., walk to the bakery, carry bread home, sell until sunset, sleep for a few hours, repeat. Rain or snow, Leo never stopped. Slowly, people in town began trusting him. Customers waited for him every morning. Children ran toward his cart smiling. After 2 months, Leo saved enough money to buy a small wooden cart. Then one day a customer asked him, "Why don't you bake your own bread?" The question stayed inside Leo's mind all night. If he baked his own bread, he could earn more money, but there was one problem. He knew nothing about baking. Still, Leo understood something important. Success belongs to people who are willing to learn. The next morning he asked Mr. Anderson, "Can you teach me how to bake?" The old man laughed. "If I teach you, you'll become my competition." Leo answered honestly, "Maybe, but I'll never forget who helped me." Mr. Anderson looked into the young man's determined eyes. Then he smiled slightly. "Come tomorrow at 3 a.m." And so began the hardest months of Leo's life. The bakery lessons were brutal. Leo burned bread, destroyed dough, dropped trays, made endless mistakes. Sometimes customers complained, sometimes Mr. Anderson shouted angrily. One exhausting night, Leo sat alone behind the bakery staring at ruined bread. His hands hurt, his back hurt, his confidence disappeared. Maybe he wasn't talented enough. Maybe success wasn't meant for people like him. For a moment, he wanted to quit, but then he remembered Sophie's smile, his mother's tired eyes, his father's words. Dreams are not free. Leo stood up slowly and went back to work. Day after day, he improved. Week after week, his bread became softer, warmer, and more delicious. Finally, one morning, Mr. Anderson tasted Leo's bread silently. Then he nodded. "You're ready." Leo opened a tiny bakery inside his home. His kitchen became his workplace. Claire helped prepare ingredients. Sophie wrapped bread in paper. Mark repaired old equipment for him. The family worked together like a team. Soon Leo started selling cookies, cakes, and pastries too. Customers loved everything he made. For the first time in years, hope entered their home. But success always attracts challenges. One day, a large modern bakery opened in town. Bright lights, beautiful decorations, fancy cakes. Its owner was a confident young businessman named Eric. People became curious and crowded around the new bakery. Leo's customers slowly disappeared. Every day his sales dropped lower. Fear returned. At night, Leo sat alone thinking, what if I lose everything? But instead of giving up, he decided to improve. He listened carefully to customers. What do you like about Eric's bakery? Some said the shop looked cleaner. Others liked the cake decorations. Leo realized something important. Hard work never stops. So he learned new skills. He studied cake designs in the library, painted his cart, improved packaging, created new recipes, worked even harder than before. Slowly, customers returned, not because Leo had the fanciest bakery, but because they trusted him. One evening, an elderly woman told him, "Many people quit when life becomes difficult. You didn't." Those words meant more to Leo than money. Months later, Leo finally rented a small shop. He named it Leo's Fresh Bakes. The opening day was emotional. The small bakery smelled of warm bread and sweet pastries. Sophie greeted customers happily while Claire managed the cash register. Mark stood quietly in the corner, smiling proudly at his son. Leo looked around the bakery with tears in his eyes. Years earlier, he had nothing. Now he owned his own business. But life had one more test waiting. Late one stormy night, smoke suddenly filled the bakery. A fire started near the oven. Leo rushed inside desperately trying to stop the flames. He managed to control the fire, but much of the bakery was damaged. The next morning, the shop looked destroyed. Broken shelves, burned walls, ruined equipment. Leo stood silently in front of the damage. Customers gathered outside, whispering sadly, "Maybe this is the end." For a moment, Leo felt completely empty. Years of hard work, gone overnight. But then he took a deep breath and smiled slightly. "This isn't the end," he said quietly. "It's another beginning." He returned home and started baking again using old tools. Some days he barely slept. Still, he served customers however he could. When the town saw his determination, something beautiful happened. People began helping him. Some donated ingredients, others helped repair the bakery. Children collected small coins. Even Mr. Anderson returned to help. "You earned this support," the old man said proudly. Months later, Leo reopened the bakery. It looked more beautiful than ever. The grand reopening filled the streets with celebration. Music played, customers laughed. The mayor himself came to congratulate Leo. Standing before the crowd, Leo spoke from his heart. "Nothing in life is free," he said. "Not success, not respect, not happiness." He looked at his family proudly. "But if you are willing to work hard, if you refuse to quit, then even impossible dreams can become real. The crowd applauded loudly, and in that moment, Leo realized something powerful. He hadn't just built a bakery, he had built a new life. A life filled with purpose, dignity, and hope. And his story became proof that no matter how poor you are, no matter how difficult life becomes, a person who refuses to give up can change their destiny forever.